Hi, everybody. For some reason, the other day I started thinking about names and thinking about the names of my brother and sister and myself. For example, my sister's name is Shirley, my brother's name is Russell, and my name is Gene or Eugene. And I just realized that how old fashioned those names are. Nobody is named uh, Russ or Shirley or Gene these days, or very few people are. And just the idea of names themselves and what importance they have. I said my name was Gene. Growing up, I was known to everybody as Weedy. And why that was, it's not really an interesting story, but I think one of the reasons that it stuck is because I was Gene Jr. So instead of being Junior or Little Gene or something like that, I was called Weedy, and it stuck. In fact, there are people with whom I grew up, and in a small town, that's basically until high school, they didn't even know my name was Gene. Uh, and then the question becomes, as you get older, is do you give up a nickname? And for me, I always thought, well, when I move out of town, I will become Gene. And part of the reason you become Gene is because you introduce yourself as Weedy, or somebody introduces you as Weedy. It's, Weedy. Oh, that's a new. Oh, how did you get that name? In fact, uh, one of my first jobs as a not one of my first jobs, my first job as a school counselor, I was introduced to a man, and the people introduced me as Weedy, and his name was Claude something. And I was introduced, and he said, Weedy, Weedy. And I immediately said, Claude, Claude. I mean, my God, if your name's Claude, you shouldn't be making fun of anybody's names. But at any rate, being named Weedy, being called Weedy, I didn't make fun of anybody's name. But how do you get rid of that? And so when I moved out of town, went to school in Fresno and got a job, I thought, well, I'll be called Gene until you're with people who call you Gene, and all of a sudden somebody who calls you Weedy comes up and, Weedy, how did you get that name? And so, at any rate, it was very difficult to move on from Weedy and become Gene. And it probably wasn't until I started a test consulting group that I actually was called Gene. And as I traveled throughout the state, people called me Gene, and I can always tell how funny it is for people who know me as Weedy when somebody calls me Gene, and they don't know what to call you. And it is interesting about people. What do you call somebody whose name you called them their entire lives as you know them changed? I'll give you an example. There's a friend of ours, Virginia. She goes by Ginny, and it's just hard. Not that I don't want to respect that she goes by Ginny, but if you call somebody something for 20 years, it's very difficult to change gears and call Virginia. So, at any rate, the names, do they mean anything? Uh, do you need to change forms? Do you need to go from Danny to Daniel or Dan? Or I always think about how lucky somebody like Gary. Gary is going to stay Gary the rest of your life. If you call him Gare, that's kind of weird, dropping that Y. But so many times we drop Jimmy to Jim to James. But at any rate, whatever our names are, whatever somebody's name is, we need to respect that. We need to respect that's how they desire to be called. And but on the other hand, if you knew somebody when you were young and you call them that name and it's still respectful, I'm sure they're going to respond. I still feel weird when somebody calls me Gene, who I grew up with. So, names, names, names by any other, rose by any other name. So, probably everybody listening to this has an old fashioned name. I appreciate your old fashioned name, and you'll have it till the end. Have a great day.